Hey, Alan, how are
Hey,
you?
hey, hey, Mike. Good, doing good. You should be good to share your screen whenever you're ready. But I know we've got some time before we start. But I just
Let
wanted
me
to go
just
ahead
get
and get
everything up and running here and make sure that you can see everything.
great,
Okay.
great. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everything was up before
Yeah,
before we started, in
absolutely.
case you had any questions or anything. So great.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Hey, Alan, testing something real quick. Are you seeing my screen over my presentation, or are you seeing the window over the presentation right
Yes,
now?
I am. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
yep. Yeah, it should let you select which. If you select that you want to share a window, it should let you select which window
Yeah,
you want
that's
to
what I
share.
did. I just wanted to make sure that
Yep.
that worked. That'll
Okay.
be
Yep.
make it easier to bounce in and out of the presentation.
Sure thing.
All right, it is the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to Maintaining Quality in Online Learning. My name is Mike Augustinelli. I'm the Instructional Program Director for the Montana Digital Academy. And we're going to spend this next hour talking about what we've done at the Digital Academy to maintain a high standard with both student learning, teacher interaction, and the processes required and the structures required to really pull all that off. So to begin with here, a couple things to get started. You can see on this opening slide, there's a short link to this presentation, mtda.link/mmquality. I also want to show off here in this session's Moodle course shell, I've added some additional resources to this presentation. So a link to the presentation itself, a woo clap that we're going to do here in a moment, and then a full wakelet of all of the different links and resources from this presentation. They're also linked in the presentation, but if you wanted to view it in the wakelet, I'll give you that option as well. So I think to get started here, we're going to jump into a woo clap here. Let me pull that up. Just a moment. And I have a couple getting started questions. So if you would go to wooclap.com/mtda quality, you can participate. Again, that's wooclap.com/mtda quality. I'm sure you're all getting very used to doing this now, as I think everybody's trying to incorporate a little woo clap in their presentations. All right, one last time, wooclap.com/mtda quality. I see we have 16 participants in, so I'll give it maybe another 15 seconds here to jump in. wooclap.com, mtda quality. All right, the first question is, I'm curious of our breakdown of participants, what your role in education is. So we have quite a lot of categories, and then I did throw an other in there if it doesn't quite fit for your role. Great, we have a nice mix of folks from all over the education spectrum. That's great. I'm curious, what drew you to this presentation? What are you hoping to learn over the next hour? How do I make good better? Relatively new to online learning, want to make it high quality? Something I don't know? Boy, I hope I can reach that bar. More about MTDA, okay. Engagement, okay. Just started as an instructional coach, looking to lead teachers in the right direction. Engagement ideas. How to make the transition smooth. Any IT related solutions. I see engagement over and over. Maintaining and sustaining quality, not as a one-time project, but ongoing cultural change. It's interesting. Thank you for your thoughts there. I appreciate it. I'm definitely feeling confident I'm going to be able to hit on a lot of them. I'll front load this with one of the main focuses of this presentation is talking about structures, processes, and messaging that MTDA does to set expectations, maintain communication, and make sure everyone stays on the same page during the student learning path. So that's a lot of what is going to be covered over the next hour. And I would argue many of those processes ultimately lead to higher engagement. All right, so last question. When you think of quality online learning, what words come to mind? And feel free to make multiple entries. Engagement, huge, not boring. Interaction. I'm glad to see communication popping up. Personal contact, like that a lot. Age appropriate, very important. Asynchronous was thrown in there, that's interesting. If you haven't picked that out yet, asynchronous communication is a form of delayed communication. So communication over time, right? Think of posting something somewhere and the next day someone comes and responds to that. Whereas the term synchronous means real time. What we're doing right now in this hour is synchronous communication. Excellent, thank you. Appreciate the thoughts. All right, great. Well, let's dive in here. And I'd like to first add a little context and frame kind of where I'm going to go today. The reality is many of you, especially those that said you are pre-K through higher ed teachers, were thrown, many of you I'm sure were thrown into this idea of emergency remote learning because obviously we had a pandemic breakout and that we had to adjust as educators. The reality of the situation, though, is if only there was a file folder you had locked away that was the pandemic plan that both your administrators and you as educators and everybody involved in education had this super easy to follow, step-by-step plan of, hey, here's how we're going to deal with this. I think it's been pretty universally known that this was a huge curveball for everybody, right? There were some districts who had experimented with blended learning. Some have even dabbled, flipped classrooms, or even had a remote learning portion of their program. But this whole notion of moving everything to fully online was a bit of a shocker for everybody. I say that because at the same time the pandemic broke out, MTDA celebrated a pretty huge milestone for us. We have now been around for over 10 years. And in that 10 years time, as you can imagine, we have grown and evolved and refined and developed very succinct processes, procedures, and protocols for online learning. Why do I bring that up? Because often I think there was this rush to perfection, and I think for many that was difficult, right? One of the things that we did early on was create a guide for districts in Montana, and ended up this caught on in a lot of other states as well. And it basically said, hey, we're the Digital Academy. We've been doing this for 10 years. We would like to let you know that there's a whole spectrum of what online learning can look like. And don't let perfect get in the way of good enough, right? For an emergency response, I know we want to be perfect. I know we want everything to work perfectly. It's just not realistic. We've got to do the best we can. And it's a process over time. What this chart shows is the idea that you can actually pull off distance learning in very different ways, right? With different technologies. On the far left-hand side, it can literally be taking worksheet packets, sending the textbook home with the kids, and then using a phone call to check in and talk with the students. Is that the ideal? Probably not, but it keeps the ball moving forward, right? On the far end of the right-hand end of the spectrum is more of what the Digital Academy provides, a full-fledged online learning experience for students across the state of Montana. And the point here is that I don't want you to freak out over the fact that, this is hard work. We've been at this for 10 years and we're still refining and developing processes. So my hope for you in this presentation today is to take away a couple key lessons learned by us, a few tidbits, maybe a few resources, and continue implementing. Hopefully we have a vaccine by sometime this next school year, and we can talk about, remember the days when we all did this. If not, and we have to do remote learning in another year, right? Then I would hope that as time progresses, districts, higher ed institutions, government agencies, everyone involved refines their practice and gets better. This is a work in progress. So please remember that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how the Digital Academy exists in the state of Montana. So we were created in 2010 as a statewide public school online option for students across the state of Montana. We were built to supplement, not supplant, the education of students across the state, which means we typically serve 1 or 2 classes per student per semester. We were not built to be a full-time program. And so that definitely gives me a little bit of a different lens in our systems and processes, as we are a supplement to, not the exclusive school for the students. We work completely through local our partners' public schools in Montana, and all of our teachers are active teachers teaching in Montana schools across the state. So if you have a Montana certification, but you're in Florida, you can't work with us. If you've retired and you're in Montana, you can't work for us. You have to be actively engaged in a Montana public school to work for the Digital Academy. So we use Moodle as our primary learning management system, and then Genius SIS as our student information system. Of all of our courses are standards based to meet Montana standards, and we point out that even when we use vendor content, there's additional work we have to do to adhere to Montana's Indian Education for All Act, which requires a different level of exposure to Indian Ed for All concepts outlined by the state of Montana. So as far as our teachers are concerned, I noted that they all are teaching in Montana public schools. It's a part-time gig for them to work for us, right? So we don't employ any full-time teachers. They typically teach 1, maybe 2 sections per semester for us. And each section we limit to 25 students. So in other presentations I've been in throughout this MOOC, there's been a lot of talk about student load for the online teacher. We are super cognizant of that, and especially in that part-time role, 25 students in a semester is more than enough. We do have some folks that take on 50 or 2 sections, but they are master online teachers. We currently offer 3 programs at the Digital Academy. Our original credit program is our largest program. We have almost 80 titles now that range everything from core-based like English 1 all the way to unique electives like criminology, oceanography, things like that. We also have a full AP catalog and partner with our 2-year colleges in Montana to offer dual credit opportunities as well. Our second program is our credit recovery program. Our credit recovery program is for students who have previously failed a face-to-face course. It's focused only on the core subjects, and again, serves students throughout the state. And then we have a really small third program, which is our middle school Spanish program. We only serve about 50 enrollments a semester in this, and this is really designed for 7th or 8th graders that want to jumpstart on their high school Spanish curriculum and jump in. To give you an idea of kind of the numbers we're serving, we had 4,784 original credit enrollments last year, and then 1,800 enrollments in credit recovery. Again, if you think about that, about 1 to 2 enrollments per student. So basically, if you cut that number about in half, that's the amount of students we serve annually. We have 4.3 admin. Jason and myself are half of it. I know there was a lot of you yesterday that were in our workshop session. And then we work with 120 Montana educators around the state. And I'll put a plug out, we are actively hiring more. So if after today, if you meet all the criteria and have some interest, feel free to go to our website and put in an application. We'd love to talk to you. All right, so let's talk about how we inform our practice. We really have 3 pieces that really guide everything we do. So the national standards for quality were released in 2019, and it was an update to work that was done by the iNACOL group around 2010. The Montana Digital Academy is part of a 15-state virtual school alliance called the VLLA, or the Virtual Learning Leadership Alliance. We partnered with an organization called Quality Matters. Some of the higher ed folks that are in this presentation may recognize that name, to create these standards, basically update these standards for the next decade. And so there are 3 different sets of standards. If you haven't come across these yet, I would highly recommend checking them out. As you can see, they're standards for the teaching aspect, program building, and then course building, right? And all 3 are very comprehensive and look at best practices across the industry. I mentioned Quality Matters just a moment ago. They have a rubric designed for, they started out in higher ed and now have created rubrics for K-12 too, that help in us, especially in our course design process. To give you kind of an idea, they have a point-based standard system that really helps guide our process as far as the look and feel of our courses, to again keep that engagement level high, not make it over text heavy, things like that. And then finally, there's the VGOT standards. This was a MTDA original. We created the VGOT framework, or Very Good Online Teaching. And this framework refines basically what you'll find in the NSQ standards and the Quality Matters rubrics specific to our needs. So there is some overlap, but there's a bit of flavor here as well. Our executive director, Bob Curry, myself, and then Jason Neifer, our assistant director, maintain these, and we're actually getting ready in the next month to release our version 3 of this framework based upon some updates and best practices across the industry. All right, so Melissa, you asked a question about updating site security for HTTPS. Yes, so all of our critical systems are already behind HTTPS to make sure that obviously student data is protected as well as user data. So in the presentation here, basically the next section, I have 4 support structures that I want to view through multiple lenses. So onboarding, supervision, structure, and evaluation. And I want to look at all of these topics through the lens of the student, our teachers, and local adults in the public school. And we've really thought about all of this in each level. And so, oh, thanks, Melanie. So, yeah, follow up with me afterwards and we can talk about that to make sure you get it. Let's start with onboarding. So for students, now this is something that from what I saw when we jumped into emergency online learning, everybody was kind of flying by the seat of their pants, understandably so. But I think this is one of the things that we can really aim to enhance for all students entering this year, right? Once districts decide or once colleges decide what it's going to look like, there needs to be some solid communication and I would argue even training prior to jumping into all the content. Students, learners have to understand the systems they're working in, at least at a basic level, before you jump into content. We know that cognitive load research suggests that if you throw new content and new learning systems at a student at the same time, the probability is they're going to get one, not both. And so it really is worth your time to take a week, maybe 2 weeks, and do some capacity building first with students so that they have a baseline knowledge of infrastructure before diving into new content, right? So our admin team does active monitoring, especially the first 3 weeks of a semester. And what we're looking for is red flags, slow starts, non-starts, what have you, and then start sending out communications like crazy. And I'll show you what some of those look like here in a moment. And then here's an example of some of the onboarding that we do for students. So we don't want any activity to be frivolous. We want them to start to get into our systems right away, but we also want to give just baseline knowledge initially so that there's a comfort level and we're reinforcing expectations right up front so every student knows, what's expected of them. So as you can see from this screenshot, this is an example of our original credit orientation that we put students through. And we start to dispel some misconceptions that students have about online learning. Many come into it thinking it's going to be easier. We don't really love the term easy or hard because they're not very objective. But the reality is that online learning takes time, just like face-to-face learning takes time. If you're not willing to invest the time, it's going to be problematic. And so framing that right up front and being open and honest with, this is the amount of time we expect you to spend in this course. And then we go as far as actually having students sign a contract right at the start of the course that says, I understand my time commitment. I understand I have to have an internet connection. I understand I have to have technology access ready to go. All of those things are vitally important to also being able to hold kids accountable at the end of the day when they say, you know, whatever, I didn't realize I'd have to spend more than a half an hour on this. Well, you signed the contract. So here's an example of some of that early monitoring and outreach we do. The reality is one of the biggest takeaways I can give you is that you need to over communicate more than you ever have if you're doing distance learning or online learning, because it's just so easy to turn away, turn off, or disengage. And so the more you can be tapping on the shoulder and saying, hey, remember we're here. Hey, remember you signed up for this. Hey, remember you have some responsibilities here. Hey, parents, for those in the K-12, you know, your son or daughter's struggling here. Those alerts are super important. We start off with a lot of automation. It's another big takeaway that we've built in. It's the only way that with an admin staff of 4, we can pull this off is by a lot of automated communications. The other thing that we do is we have consistent graphics throughout. So you can see the initial outreach, friendly, warm, fuzzy, you know, that as nice as possible. Hey, what's going on? And then we start to ramp it up, right? That we use this exclamation mark, red symbol to highlight the fact that like things are escalating now. And that's very purposeful. All right, let's talk about our teachers. So we've built quite an extensive structure about how to get teachers ready to teach for the Digital Academy. First is before any teacher can work for the Digital Academy, they have to go through, it's about a 4 to 5 hour orientation. And this, again, starts to set the foundation because we want everyone to understand what they're getting themselves into and if they really want to take the job, right? We don't feel it's like it's fair to just throw them in and say, hey, here we go, and not give a pretty comprehensive heads up about what's expected. Once they complete the orientation, that leads them to our bench, our teacher bench. And what we do is we have content benches where we can pull people up when sections become available to teach, right? So if we have a bumper crop of kids this fall, like I think we're probably going to, we need teachers ready and understanding what's going on so that they can jump in, okay? And then after teachers teach with us for a semester, they're then enrolled in the second phase of our training it's something called the VGOT certification. And what we've done is we've taken the VGOT standards and we've built a even more comprehensive training around it. And what this does is this starts to refine practice, dig deeper into all of our expectations, and really take our online teachers to the next level. Now, for the local adults in the public school, we are not direct employers of any of those individuals, but they're a critical component to that wraparound support that make online learning successful. This is another thing that I think for if you're in a district and you're thinking about, okay, if we're going to be remote for this, at least the start of the year, what are some things we need to be thinking about? I would offer that your para support, I've heard some districts that chose to use their para support to clean classrooms. Fine, it's a needed resource. I would argue that I would use them to do additional student outreach and engagement, because you really do need more than just the core teaching team or the classroom teacher to do that outreach. It takes multiple people. And when that's all working right, it makes a huge difference, right? So what we do for those folks is we'll do one-on-one Zoom calls. Jason and I, when COVID isn't running rampant, we travel the state so we can meet face-to-face with as many folks as we can to build relationships and really make sure that we're all on the same page about how to support kids. We run a support desk, which is another thing I think districts need to be thinking about. If you don't have a support desk structure that's student facing, if you're going to do online learning, you need to have it, because there's the content-based questions that are completely appropriate for the teacher, but then there are the technical questions that may or may not be really fair to ask the educator in the classroom. And so those IT folks, I know there's a few on with us, thinking about student-facing technical support is a big component to making this all work and keeping kids engaged. All right, supervision. So what do we do for our supervision of students? A handful of things that are super important. Weekly grade reports. Many face-to-face institutions do this, send out some sort of weekly report. If you're not sending it out and had the process previously of students being asked to log in to check their grades, if it's a possibility in your student information system, I would highly suggest broadcasting or sending out those weekly grade reports. In K-12, I would send them to parents as well if you have the technology to do it. It just keeps everybody more on the same page because there's a higher probability of miscommunication in online learning than there is even in face-to-face classroom, and there's plenty of miscommunication there as well, right? Anything that can be automated warning-wise, so triggers based upon grade levels would be one example, right? For us, that 65% threshold triggers a lot of different events in our systems. Again, to send outward communications, to ring the alarm bells that, hey, things are happening here that that may not be good and need your attention. And then we'll get into the communication ladder in just a moment. And this is a protocol we developed to help support our teachers in really sounding those alarm bells at certain times, so we're consistent with our messaging. Here's an example. Again, another one of our graphics. This is informational. Anytime there's an informational type email sent out from our systems, it has this black dot with the I in it. Again, that consistency matters because as you all have learned over these past months, we're doing more email communication than we've ever done. And so any sort of visual cues that you can give to your the reader, it's helpful. Here's a look at what our grade reports look like. And so it gives that basic percentage grade plus announcements that we update weekly from our administrative offices. again, to try to keep everybody on the same page. This goes out to students, this goes out to parents as well, and the local sites as well. All right, so our teaching staff, how do we supervise that? That's actually part of my role at the Digital Academy, and we have a layered solution that we use to help both support, make sure best practices are being implemented, and give an opportunity for collegial dialogue as well. So we've developed this notion called enhanced support, and basically what it means is it's a weekly walkthrough, a virtual walkthrough in the classroom. What I'm looking for when I do my virtual walkthroughs is are our teachers meeting the criteria outlined in the VGOT framework, right? So all new hires are on this for their first semester. And I use a basic tracking spreadsheet in Google Sheets that looks like this. I made just a basic example in this link. Nothing fancy here, right? It's just some conditional formatting with the drop-down list. And I date at the top, and I go through and I look. At the end of the semester, I meet with Bob and Jason, and we talk. If there's a lot of red on any one person, that warrants more conversations, right? And more redirection. We use Workplace from Facebook as our community platform. And we're still dabbling in this to really get it to the level that we want it. But as you can see, we've built out departments. We've got some just basic chat areas. And of all of the community type building platforms that we've tried, and I think this is now number 6, this is working the best for us. I think partially because everybody, while they may hate Facebook, they understand how it works, and Workplace for Facebook functions very similarly. And it has been a very easy platform for us to share ideas and have collegial discussion. So whether you use Workplace from Facebook or not, having some sort of online community place for the teaching staff is super helpful. And then again, we don't oversee local adults in the school. We don't have a direct employment relationship with them. We still, at any one semester, are working with over 200 schools. So roughly around, 600 to 700 adults. We keep them CC'd on communications. Some of that's automated. And then every month we check our support desk to look for trends, to see areas that need additional outreach and support. That then triggers often a visit from Jason and I to just head over there and meet them face to face or get on a Zoom call and just make sure we're all on the same page about the program. All right, the next section is structure. So here's a look at some of the things we do for students to build consistency. And that's a huge thing. The brain craves consistency. We know that from brain research. It also makes changing classes, right, over time, or going in between different teachers easier. One of the things I heard over and over about the experiment that was last spring was that many folks wish there was more consistency in the usage. There's another big takeaway. If you're using multiple platforms or different teachers are using different platforms for student learning, that's a barrier to success. You should all be on the same platform, for sure. Here is something we do in each course. We have a top block that gives some relevant buttons for the student, quick access to their grade book, quick access to the handbook, live tutoring service I'll talk about in a minute, more information about their teacher, and then our technical help desk. That red help button graphic we use everywhere. We refer to the big red help button. Kids know that. They're trained. They know that if they click on that within an hour is what we state, even though we're usually faster than that, someone from our admin team will be reaching back out to the student to make sure that they're getting the help they need. Having some sort of help structure built into your system is super important. So we partnered with tutor.com about 6 years ago, and it's been an awesome partnership. As I stated, our teachers are part-time, right? They have active day jobs teaching in their face-to-face classroom. We needed to figure out a wraparound support to answer students' content questions when the student wanted to ask the question, right? So our tutoring service covers all of our core classes, many of our electives, and it offers 24/7 tutoring support from the service. If you never checked out tutor.com, it is a pay-for service. We feel it's very reasonable for our organization. It's not super expensive. And that extra layer of support we found is super helpful for our teachers and for our students as well. One of the cool things about how it integrates into our system is our teachers can review any tutoring sessions that happen so that they can see what the tutor was showing the student. And every month I get a report. Our student satisfaction on the tutoring service has been around 97% for 6 years now and running. It's been a very great addition to our program. All right, so how about some structures for our teachers? Weekly announcements were a key thing that we layered in about, I guess, 6 years ago now, which has really increased our presence and helped to build some trust building between the students and teachers. I think one of the realities that a lot of teachers are facing right now is the fact that if you start remote, you're not going to get the benefit of having those face-to-face kiddos in front of you. And so you're gonna have to build your rapport online. Lots of strategies. One strategy would be helping outline their week so that they know what's happening, right? So here is one of those strategies. This is from an English 3 teacher. One of the key things that we asked our teachers to do is help give students a time breakdown of the activities for the week. We got great feedback from parents that this was extremely helpful in helping the student build in some time management. So here's that communication ladder that I mentioned earlier. And basically what it states is that we want proactive communication triggered on certain events. And right now the two big triggers are when a student drops below a 65% or when a student becomes inactive for more than a couple days. We have automated responses that send out through our student information system that are triggered by our teachers. And that layer of support is key, again, to making sure everyone's on the same page when things are starting to go off the rails. Here's an example of that student inactivity notice. And again, setting the expectation, we expect this amount of engagement per week. We haven't heard from you. Hey, what's going on? And then we always are CCing our local adults, right? So those local adults are also in the loop at the local school of what's happening in the MTDA courses. As far as evaluation goes, we do obviously evaluate students. There's an evaluation process for our teachers as well. One of the things that we've asked our teachers to do is over time do assessment analysis in their course. Moodle has amazing analytics built in the back end of the quiz module where you can really get deep level information about what quiz questions are working and what quiz questions are not. Definitely worth your time to check that out. We offer a student satisfaction survey at the end of every semester This helps guide our program, helps tell us new courses that students are interested in potentially taking in the future, and really gives us that on-the-ground feedback for both the administrative team and our teaching staff of what's going well and what we need to work on. For students where this is just not working, and there's definitely a percentage of students, around 10% annually usually, that it doesn't work for whatever reason. They're not logging on, they're not engaging. We will put enrollment restrictions on student accounts. And again, as the supplemental program, ask the local school to have a discussion before enrollment again. We don't necessarily exclude them from the program. We just want to have a conversation before they go forward. Our student perception survey is built off of a work done in Colorado. This is a fully researched project that the Colorado Initiative did. Definitely check out their student perception survey tool. If you're not doing student perception surveys in your school, this is a great place to start. For our teachers, we do have formal evaluations once a semester. They're based on our VGOT standards. And one of my processes for that is a simple Google form, right? I indicate to our teachers, here's the VGOT standard we're focused on. I've made a link of an example for anybody that might find that useful, right? If you've ever gone to one of my or Jason presentations before, you'll know that text expansion is key to everything we do. This basically allows us to type a couple characters and it will type out sentences or paragraphs. A simple Google search for text expansion will blow your mind if this is a new concept for you. And then based upon my observational walkthroughs, that feeds a spreadsheet. And the point I wanted to make here is I use a Google tool called Yet Another Mail Merge. And what Yet Another Mail Merge does is you can set it up to look at Google Sheets, right? And then automatically take data from Sheets and fill it into an email. So I started doing this when I was still teaching in the classroom. I'm a former middle school teacher. And this was one of the huge efficiencies I built. So if this is something that's intriguing to you, I would suggest going to Yet Another Mail Merge, watch they have like a 3-minute video, and it's a game changer. It will save you so much time, right? So then based upon our student satisfaction survey, this is another indication for locally places that we may need to focus in and maybe make some site visits. So what has this meant for us over 10 years? Well, we have 90% of the teachers that started with us are still with us. And our annual student satisfaction rate hovers around the 85 mark, even though I will tell you that during COVID spring semester, we had our highest student satisfaction rate ever at 93%. And I think that was because of the fact that the systems were already set up and COVID didn't change that much for us. We in Montana are helping expand opportunities for kids, which feels really good. It's a big part of what makes me feel good about the work I do every day is kids have more opportunities because we exist. And that's my presentation with a minute to spare. So I'll look through chat to see if there's some questions. If anybody wants to ask anything while we have a little time remaining, please feel free to turn on your mic and ask.
Hey, Mike, this is Wes.
Hey, Wes.
What kind of guidelines do you give your teachers in terms of chasing down students with individual assignments missing? I know you said you got those triggers in place when those things happen. But I know that, and this was different obviously for remote learning, but like I spent a ton of time chasing down kids. I think our teachers did too. So yes. Any thoughts on that as far as what a best practice would be?
Yeah, I think it requires nuance is my initial reaction to it. Just as we do in the face-to-face classroom, what we're big on with our teachers is looking for trends, right? If it's one assignment that goes missing, Our most on the ball teachers will reach out and just say, hey, you didn't turn something in, is everything okay? That goes miles and miles as far as that presence piece in class. But anytime that there's a pattern that starts, that also ratchets up what Jason and I get involved with from the administrative side. And we take on a lot of that, what tends to sometimes be harder discussions, right? Because we really believe that we want our teachers to remain the teachers. And if Jason and I have to be the jerks that are, having those real hard conversations, we're happy to take that on. And so we use a balanced approach that way. Thanks for the question, Wes. Anything else that I can answer for anyone?
So for those messages, do you use Insights or do you use something else? Maybe you said that and I didn't hear it.
Yeah, great question. So it's a layered strategy for us. We use Genius student information system. A lot of those screenshots I showed were automated triggers that happened in our student information system. We also run a full MailChimp campaign where we do additional layered messaging. So for instance, the grade report, that actually goes out through a different system as well when necessary. And then for the more informational pieces, when we're communicating out to students, teachers, or parents, those will be done in MailChimp as well. We also utilize Salesforce, and we use that really our customer as a customer relationship management system. And what we do there is we have every administrator, every counselor, every site facilitator that's been identified across the state in our Salesforce system, so that we can track help tickets back to Salesforce, because our help desk software resides within Salesforce. So it automatically tags to the local school. That helps in our report running, right? So if I pull up XYZ school and last month they had 30 support tickets all on the same thing, we can then proactively reach out and just say, hey, it looks like there's an issue with a filter on your server side. Let's talk about that thing. Yeah, link to our organization. I see that somebody asked that. Let me grab that for you here. Other questions while I'm pulling that up? I just threw digitalacademy.org in the chat. So the other thing I'll do is I will take this chat transcript and put it in the Moodle shell as well, so we all have this to refer back to as well. Oh, interesting, Melanie. I'm seeing the conversation between you and Wes about students reading. Hey, we totally struggle with the same thing, right? So that's why I really go back to the idea that it takes multiple communications. And I mean, I think back to when I was teaching in the classroom, how many times did you have to give the same direction over and over, right? Like at least 10, if not 20. Well, and if you have 30 students in your room, sometimes it's 30, right? I think about that with our communication too. Like it's a balance, because you don't want to overwhelm people with information, but trying to get the relevant information in front of people at critical times is really, we spend a lot of time thinking about that, whether it's email, whether it's in the course shell, whether it's in a video. Yeah, that whole process is tricky. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone coming and appreciate the feedback. If you would please remember to take a moment and give feedback to me on the presentation. I sure would appreciate it. I really value that. And I hope you have a great rest of your moot. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Mike. And don't forget that this session, like all the other ones, are being recorded. So if you didn't get a chance to catch everything, you can go back and watch it again, and be sure to contact Mike if you have any questions at all. So,
absolutely. Thanks, Alan.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, you bet.
And I just saw that Michelle was asking about the password for the recorded sessions. The recorded session is actually going to be included with the course. I don't know if I'm supposed to do that, or Ryan is supposed to do that, or Dan, but we'll figure it out. And all of the recorded sessions are going to be put in with the course session in Moodle. So should be able to get to it from there. Oh, I saw your other question there, Michelle. That could have been because of maybe the session moderator added that link into the Moodle course instead of Ryan being able to go into the Zoom account and being able to disable the password and put it in manually. So I'll check with Ryan. We'll get it all straightened out, and we'll post something in the course. So. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out this session. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you around.
Thanks, Alan.